Hello everyone, good to have you all back. The movie we'll be talking about today is a 2018 drama comedy called The Professor, also known as Richard Says Goodbye. The story revolves around Richard, a university professor diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He struggles to cope with the news and acts out in class and at dinner with his family. He decides not to tell his wife and daughter about his condition and focuses on shortlisting the students he wants to teach before his time runs out. Despite his diagnosis, Richard continues to live life to the fullest, including having affairs and partying with his students. His wife Veronica is also having an extramarital entanglement with his boss. Richard and Veronica deal to discreetly have flings without affecting their daughter. One of his students turns out to be the niece of Veronica's lover. Richard takes his students to a bar and flirts with the server. He finds out his daughter has a girlfriend and is happy for her. In class, Richard allows smoking and drinking, much to the surprise of his colleagues. His friend Peter tries to intervene and takes him to a support group for cancer patients, but Richard refuses to share his story and instead invites everyone over at the bar. Peter leaves drunk, but Richard stays with Claire, who works at the bar. She tells him she is impressed by his bravery and puts on some music while Richard pops another pill. He tells her about his cancer and how he doesn't realize that he is dying soon. He tells her to keep it a secret, since he never told anyone else. She calls him to dance with her and he agrees. While dancing, Richard passes out and Claire takes him to the ER, where a drunk Peter arrives to see Richard reading a book in the hospital. He has his gardener by his side and his emergency contact. Peter warns him to clean up his act. Richard comes back home and struggles to climb the stairs. Veronica comes and asks where he was all night, to no response. He goes to his office and is working when he picks up the call from Henry's secretary, telling him to come home to meet him. He sits in his office while Henry tries to make small talk. Richard doesn't seem interested. Henry starts telling him about the allegations against Richard of this new routine he has begun. Richard cuts him off and starts overpowering and threatening him, talking about Henry's affair with his wife and how he illegally allocates funds to her. He also tells him to accept his sabbatical as he gets up and leaves his office. As soon as he gets out, he starts coughing heavily and rests his back to catch his breath. The family is now ready to go over to Peter's house. At the posh party, Peter's wife is at the dining table talking about her lavish life. Suddenly, Richard coughs on the table and they stop, but then continue to talk about Ibiza. After dinner, Peter takes Richard to his snooker room and tells him about the sabbatical getting approved. In the next class, Claire talks about book and impresses Richard, who gives her an A. Laying on the floor, he takes help to stand up and gives his students a motivational speech, after which he gets emotional. In his office, he chokes and falls again. Peter enters and rushes to help him. Bells are tolling and he asks to go to church. They talk about the essence of the church, and Richard tells him that the cancer is starting to kick in. He told him it pains, and that he knew this was bound to happen. Looking back, he thinks everything that happened was right to happen. He gets philosophical about life, and then emotional when he talks about leaving the world. Peter starts crying and Richard cheers him up as they leave the church. They stand up and go in for a long hug, thanking each other for being friends, and then joke about being gay. Olivia comes home to the professor seated sick on a sofa. Fast forward to an event hosted by Henry and his wife for the university. He meets Veronica awkwardly, while Richard grabs Henry's wife and kisses her passionately. After some small talk, they all move to the dining hall where Richard is seated at the back. Henry gets up and makes a speech welcoming all with a toast to the future. Suddenly, Richard clicks his glass to make an announcement and stops the music. He starts talking about Henry as a joke and his affair with women. He interrupts Richard and shuts him up again. He boasts about Peter and pays him respect. He thanked him for being his best friend. Richard then tells him he took a sabbatical because he is about to die. He tells them he regrets not living life to the fullest and thanks his wife for everything. He tells Veronica his plans for leaving town and wishes her the best. They say their emotional goodbyes. Richard leaves. At home, Olivia comes after breaking up with her girlfriend who cheated. Richard comforts her and motivates her. He tells her he's sick and it's not going to get better. He tells her it's going to be okay while she cries. She gets up and hugs him one last time while they both cry. He picks up his bags and his dog gets in his car and leaves. As he's driving in the rain, he starts crying, but then he stops his car, wipes off his tears, takes his car into a field, and speeds it up. The movie ends abruptly here.